Welcome to Solving for the Missing Side. Let's take a look at this question over here. So this side length is 3, this side length is 4, and we're solving for the x over here. Okay, so first of all, let's write out a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so what this means is the two side lengths will add up to the hypotenuse squared. Just to let you know, this is the hypotenuse. Okay? So that means that 3 squared plus, because this is a side length, this is another side length, 4 squared equals the hypotenuse squared, which is x squared. Okay? So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, equals x squared. 9 plus 16 is 25, which is x squared. So take the square root of both sides to cancel out this square. And so the square root of 25 equals x. And what's the square root of 25? If you don't know, you can put it into a prime factorization. 5, 5. So 25 equals 5 squared. So the square root of 25 equals 5. Okay? So 5 equals x. Okay? You don't have to put it back here or anything. This is perfectly fine. You could just write 5 equals x or x equals 5. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. Okay, so there's a 5, there's a 6, and there's a c. Okay, so we know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this is a side length, which we could put as a. This is another side length, which we can put as b. And then c here, which is our hypotenuse, is going to go as c. Okay, we just erase these arrows. So a is 5 squared plus b is 6 squared equals c squared. So 5 squared is 25 plus 6 squared is 36 is c squared. So 25 plus 36. 36 plus 25 is 11, 9, oh, oops, I'm multiplying. Okay, 6 plus 5 is 11, and then this becomes 6, so that's 61. 61 equals c squared, okay? So, how do we get rid of a square root? How do we get rid of a square? We will square root. Okay, we do what we do on one side, we do on the other. So this way, this gets cancelled, and then the square root of 61 equals c. Okay, now we can try prime factorizing 61, but there isn't really anything that goes into 61, so that just means that we're going to leave our answer like this. The square root of 61 equals c. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. Okay, so we're solving this time for a side length, not a hypotenuse. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This is a side length which we'll put into a, this is a side length which we'll put into b, and this is a hypotenuse which will go into c. Okay, so a is 2 squared plus b is just b, so b squared equals c is 8 squared. Okay, now we're solving for b squared, so we're going to subtract 2 squared from both sides. Okay, actually, before we do that, let's simplify the exponents. Okay, so 2 squared is 4 plus, we'll leave b squared as just b squared. 8 squared is 64. Okay, so now it's a bit easier to work with here. And we can subtract 4 from both sides to solve for b squared. B squared equals 60. Okay, so what that means is if we square root both sides, this cancels, and b equals the square root of 60. Okay, so we can prime factorize 60. Oh, what's happening? Give me a sec here. Okay, so we can prime factorize 60. Divided by 2, there's 30. Divided by 2 again, we're 15. Divided by 3, 5. So 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. Well, there's no way to pair this up to get a square root, so we're just going to leave it as the square root of 60. Okay? B equals the square root of 60. Let's take a look at this last question here. The back deck of a truck is 1 meter above the ground. A 2.6 meter ramp extends from the deck to the ground. Measured horizontally, how far behind the truck does the ramp touch the ground? Okay, so we want a 1 decimal point answer here. So we're going to start with a diagram. Okay, so this is the truck. Okay, the back deck of the truck here is 1 meter on top of the ground. Okay, so this is the deck. And a 2.6 meter ramp extends from the deck to the ground. Okay, so this is the deck over here. I think it would be a bit more clear if I just said this is the deck, right? Because give me a sec. So let's draw a pickup truck, actually, that'll make it a bit easier. Okay. Okay, so this is the deck, okay? There's 1 meter from here to the ground, okay? Now, let's write that in blue, 1 meter. Now, from the back of the truck, there's a 2.6 meter ramp. So, 2.6 meters of a ramp over here. Okay, this is the ramp that we're talking about over here. Let's just color it in. And measured horizontally, how far back does the ramp touch the ground? So, this is the distance that we're solving for. Let's call it x. Okay? So, we're going to redraw this as a triangle. We're going to write 2.6 here, 2.6 meters, this 1.0 meters, and this is, we'll write it as x. Okay? We'll write x over here. So we're solving for x. Okay? Now, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Our two side lengths are these, and this is the hypotenuse that goes in there. So 1.0 squared plus x squared equals 2.6 squared. Okay? 1.0 squared is just 1. Okay, because 1 times 1 is 1, plus x squared equals 2.6 squared, so we'll take 2.6, multiply it by 2.6. We're left with 3, 6, 12, 1, 5.6, and no, not 1, 5.6, that is 1.56, and then 2 times that is 5.20. This adds up to 6.76. Okay, 1 plus x squared equals 6.76. Now we can subtract 1 from both sides, and x squared equals 6.76 minus 1, which is 5.76. So x squared equals 5.76. Now we can square root both sides. Square root both sides. And x equals the square root of 5.76. Now, I wanted to do something here. So, instead of prime factorizing it, because that's going to be really difficult because it's a decimal, what we could do is we can test some numbers. Okay, so we know that 2.6 squared is 6.76, right? Just like how we solved over here. So, let's try 5. Let's try 2.3 squared. 2.3 squared is, let's do 2.3 times 2.3. That becomes 9, 6, 4, 6, 0. This is point. This becomes 5.29. Okay, so 2.3 squared is 5.29, but we want 5.76. So let's try 2.4 squared. Okay, so go over here. 2.4 times 2.4 is 1, 6. That becomes 8. 0.96, sorry. This is the plus 1 over there. This is 0.96. And we're adding this to 4.80, and this becomes 6, 7, 5.76. Okay, so 2.4 squared is 5.76, which is this thing over here. So the square root of 5.76, if 2.4 squared is 5.76, we square root both sides, the square root of 5.76 is 2.4. Okay, so x equals 2.4. That's solving for the missing side.